Welcome, everybody, to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are so lucky and so happy. We have our good friend, Matt Kahn, back with us today.
Back on.
Oh, man, Matt has become a good friend. He has provided our community with so much wisdom. We're so grateful, and this is a blessing. So thank you for being back, brother.
Thanks for having me. It's such an honor to be here with you both and everyone that's on the call.
We love you. So Leah's going to read your bio, and then we'll do some Heart Coherence.
Yes. Matt Kahn is an incomparable spiritual teacher, highly attuned empathic healer, powerful speaker, and captivating author. He enriches people's lives by providing heart-centered solutions, which we love here, that ignite, delight, and unite. Matt wrote the highly acclaimed books, Whatever Arises, Love That, Everything is Here to Help You, and The Universe Always Has a Plan. His newest book, All for Love, will help you awaken your inner healer, transform conflict, and embrace our ever-changing world with confidence and compassion.
Oh,
Welcome, Matt, again.
Yeah.
Back with
thank
us.
you.
Congratulations on all the success with the new book. It's phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such a joy to write, and it's, I love all my books, but there's something really special. I went so deep in my personal life, and it was such a cathartic experience for me. And it's such an honor, humbling honor, to know how cathartic it's been for everyone that's read it. So thank you so much.
Such a heart-centered book. So let's all dive into the heart, and we'll guide a meditation really brief, but if anything flows through you and you want to join in, feel free. So if everyone could focus your attention on the air of your heart, if it helps, you can place your hand on your heart. Now imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Try a pace of 5 seconds on the inhale, 5 seconds on the exhale, in and out through the heart.
And we'll continue this breathing pattern of breathing in and out of your heart, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. And if you have a transmission, Matt, that you would like to add in as we're breathing in and out of our heart, we would love that.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. As we're breathing in and out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. What if on the inhale, we breathe in a thank you to all of our organs, atoms, cells, and molecules, and all aspects of our being, including the mind, the heart, the inner child, and even the ego and shadow, all just various archetypal expressions of the one I am that you are. And on the exhale, a blessing of thank you to fill every heart in existence. For through the law of one, what we breathe in is nourishment from the all that we are. And as we breathe out, we are sending blessings to the one eternal heart beating in all bodies. Breathing in a thank you to all aspects of self. Breathing out blessings of thankfulness to uplift, expand, heal, and liberate all sentient beings. Breathing in a thank you. Breathing out blessings of thankfulness. So to help manifest a planet where all sentient beings perceive and treat each other as if every day is the holiday season.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. It's not so often that we get to interview somebody who's such like an ascended master like you are. I'm probably more of like a descended troublemaker. So I want to use an opportunity like this to learn from you and get raw about some things I'm struggling with. I'm personally not somebody who's been able to transcend some of my struggles in the way that you have, but I would love to learn from you. And hopefully anybody that's going through what I'm going through could as well. And so, one thing that has been this theme that I've been really dying to ask you about is I see a lot of people in the spiritual community that have struggled with narcissism or narcissists. And it's really like, narcissists are bad, which I understand there's so much pain around that, right? Sure. But I'm somebody actually who's struggled with trying to control things when I feel threatened. So I would love for you to talk about like the spiritual side of narcissism. What is that person actually going through, and what hope can we provide for somebody who's actually a narcissist?
Well, what a great question. And thank you for asking, because I love, really diving as deeply as possible. The first thing about narcissism is we have to separate it from self-centeredness, because I think there's a lot of tendencies where we see someone who's coming from a self-centered position and we say narcissism. Narcissism isn't just vanity, right? Because that's just the condition of an inflated ego structure. And of course, if someone has an inflated ego structure, of course, it's a trauma response for unprocessed pain. But the difference between self-centeredness and narcissism is that a narcissist is not just incapable of empathy, right? That's a different level, but they are someone who has to constantly be on the attack, positioning other people below them to keep themselves in an imagined place of superiority. So I define narcissism in two ways, both incapable of empathy, right? Self-centeredness is I can be empathic when I want to, or I can choose to be empathic, but this is my self-interest is more of an interest to me. Or they're choosing not to be empathic, or what's in it for me. And if there's not enough gift in it for me, why be empathic? But that's kind of self-centeredness. Narcissism is incapable of being empathetic to anyone else's experience and constantly need to be on the attack of constantly belittling and demoralizing people. So if we use that definition, there are people that embody that in the world for sure. But I think a lot of times what we're seeing is self-centeredness, which self-centeredness is where people's innocence hide because they are constantly subconsciously, they may not be aware of it, constantly hiding from the feelings that cause them to feel out of control. So control for a self-centered person is how they hide from the pain they're afraid to be overwhelmed by. Narcissist, if we were to talk about what the spiritual implications of that is, narcissism is the highest level of empathic denial, meaning every human being is empathetic. Everyone's on a spectrum of being empathic and then to the opposite extreme. When we start to talk about narcissism, it's an entry point into sociopathic patterning. So that's a very large statement I just said. Yeah. So if we just kind of call people narcissists, we're saying, I am seeing an entry point into sociopathic behavior, which is a very big leap in most cases. But when we're looking at that type of, entry point into sociopathic behavior, we're looking at an empath who is strayed so far away from their empathetic nature that and they may not even be aware they're doing it or care, but they are doing everything they can to deny their empathic nature, so to stay in a false space of superiority. So when I see narcissistic behavior, and we can certainly talk about how to interact with people who are in that place, whether self-centered or narcissism, but really my heart, I say a prayer and I say, may you find all that needs to be uncovered to return to your empathic nature. And I think it's quite powerful when even in the presence of a narcissist or a sociopathic character, that my heart chooses to always pray and send a blessing that the depths of their empathic nature be remembered so that no other person, including themselves, may be harmed in their presence. And that's just an ongoing work that we all do to uplift the consciousness of humanity, because in order for the ascension to truly gather speed and expand in a way that will really bring heaven on earth to this planet, there has to be healing for the victim as well as the predator. And I think when we really start to get into the inner workings of narcissism, it's similar to self-centeredness, but self-centeredness is really more of what we encounter on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Well, thank you for shining light on that. And just to follow up, the reason I asked you that question specifically is because I heard you talk about your childhood, where you were taking other people's emotions on. And yes, I realized, just through that conversation was the first time the light bulb went off. Well, that's me. It's like I have my whole life, like when somebody's angry at me, or it feels so bad.
Yes.
And I never knew that I was actually taking the emotion on of the other person. So that's why I
Yes.
want to talk a little bit more about this.
Sure.
I'm currently still in a situation where I haven't transcended that, and it still feels so bad to me. And
Right.
I do actually react in a way that I'm not proud of. And any advice you can give me for growing through that?
Absolutely. And my heart is with you, and I'm so glad you're asking this. So I think that there are two approaches people take. One is the what I would call the old paradigm approach, which is let's protect ourselves with bubbles of energy and let's separate ourselves from other people's energy. Now, if we use the analogy of a hurricane, the eye of the hurricane, the center is where the peace is, where the stillness is. Anything around the hurricane is where the velocity will pull things apart. So if we're trying to further separate ourselves as empaths, we are now in the circumference of the most dangerous and powerful part of the hurricane. The most peaceful, safe place is in the middle. And it seems very contradictory or counterintuitive to most people that when they say, what do I do with being overwhelmed by people's feelings? Well, in my journey, and I was guided by a team of ascended masters, I didn't, learn about spirituality in the conventional way. I learned from the universe and downloading teachings. But I was taught that when I feel myself taking on people's energy, I do two things. One is I slow my breathing, and my breathing, by slowing it, is actually bringing me closer into the experience. So I want to move closer to the experience, not further away from it. The further you pull away from an experience, the more adversity you're going to experience in the presence of another person. And really, it's actually a very simple remembrance and a very simple, kind of like a mantra, but something you say to yourself. And what you say to yourself is, or what you remember is that in the middle of your body is a column of light that connects through all your chakras, all the way to heaven and down into Mother Earth. And it's called your central channel. And anything that enters your body is going to go through two, it's like a fork in the road. There's two ways to go about it. It's either going to be transmuted by the energy of your central channel and converted into blessings that shoot out to all beings, or if you're unaware of this process, you will choose to identify with the energy that enters you, and you will turn it into a piece of fabric that you tape on to the quilt of your ego as something to work on and process. So when you feel yourself empathically or empathing someone, you feel yourself getting triggered, you feel yourself getting tired, you simply say to yourself, thank you, central channel, for reminding me of the energy I'm transmuting instead of having to identify with. And when you say that to yourself, your awareness makes the decision for all the incoming information and emotional patterning to put it in the direction of central channel, transmute density into light, shoots out of the top of your crown and throughout all your chakras as blessings for all beings. So we learn as co-creators that when we say to ourselves, thank you, central channel, which is then by saying thank you, central channel, you're telling your consciousness, I choose to have this energy go in that direction for transmuting this energy I'm empathing instead of taking it on.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate you sharing that with me.
And when I say that, how does it feel in your body?
It feels like way better than how I've been reacting. So it seems good. Yeah.
And even, by the way, if you react, you can say to yourself, I allow the energy in this reaction to be transmuted by my central channel and return to source now. So even after the fact, you can still do it so that it's all about learning how to co-create and work with the universe. And it's never going to be a pass or fail situation.
Yeah. I'm going to practice that and I'll let you know how it goes.
Good. I'm excited because when I started doing it, it was a game changer. I've been empathic my whole life, and I've just taken on people's energy, and if you think of like people's energy, like blankets you put over you, by the time I learned about this stuff, I was like walking around with like 1,000 blankets over me, and then ironically wondering why no one could see me. Well, I'm buried under heaps of blankets and they can't see me. I'm not sure who I am. So it's a very confusing thing. But once we start to really get onto it, and we start working with the universe, not just as a person seeking connection with the universe, but we learn how to connect with the universe as the universe itself. That's when magnificent doors start to really open within us.
Bless you, my friend.
I would love to just talk more about the nature of being empathic. And I think there was sort of an evolution of the word where I think it was initially like, I have some magical talent. Then it was like, I have trauma. And so as it evolved, and it seems like people more commonly recognize that there is an association between a traumatic childhood and becoming really empathic.
Right.
I would love to know what you think is really happening, and if the nature of being an empath has to do with that. You actually become an emotion detector and you're sensing things, or you're just more hypervigilant. So you're noticing faces, noticing things, and creating a strong reaction. I would love to know what you think about all of those things.
I think that the reason empathic phenomenon exists, just to give first a broad answer, is that one of the reasons why Earth and the earthly experience is so protected by the higher realms and so sought after by our celestial brothers and sisters in other dimensions and planetary systems is because, there's a lot of civilizations out there, many light years away, that some of us communicate with. I mean, I can say in my experience, I do. And they have very high level technology, things that we couldn't even conceive of. But the one thing we have that they don't is a human body, a sense of individuation, and a nervous system. And what we are doing as evolving ascended masters in physical forms and future archangels and spirit guides in this training program is we are actually learning to experience our consciousness, not only in a multidimensional sense, through a sense of individuation as an individual, and to manifest the light of our consciousness through an emotional body, which is the beauty of the chakras. And it is as if we are light beings that came here to make a rainbow, where every color represents a different emotional aspect of our consciousness. And it's a way for the divine, the reason why Earth was created, not just as a training ground to train souls to become angels, spirit guides, and ascended masters and archangels, which is actually part of what Earth is as a training ground. But at the same time, it is a place in which divinity can experience itself emotionally and express itself artistically, which is something that so many advanced civilizations go, what's that like? And so the opportunity for us to, as empaths, is to integrate the light of our consciousness into each chakra, which I call levels of consciousness, all 7 levels of consciousness, and to allow spirit the opportunity to be a fully realized and embodied expression of itself through emotional awareness and through creative self-expression. And so Earth is really an opportunity for spirit, the spirit in all of us, to manifest the remembrance of our true nature in a way that it has never been expressed before. And so I think that as empaths, and there become different buzzwords in spirituality, nervous system dysregulation, the word sensitive is very, popular. And I get it, because we all carry around traumas, and there's no comparing one trauma to the other, what is traumatic for one, and it's all very meaningful. But I think sometimes as empaths, we kind of can throw the word sensitive around. And what I'd like to say is that the difference between sensitive and empathic is really determined by how often one blames. Because sensitive can be like, I'm internally going through so much transmutation that I'm in a more fragile space within myself, where I'm bothered by so many things that maybe didn't bother me or whatever. So sensitive is, I'm going through so much transmutation and my nervous system is just in a state of hypervigilance, and it causes me to have what I would call, in a very nice way, hyper reactivity. Right. Like I remember, and I say this about my mom lovingly because I love my mom. We had a great relationship. But as an example, my mom would kind of be at the dinner table and she had such control issues that if someone did something she didn't want to do, that bothered her reality. That was how she channeled her empathic nature in a very unconscious way. And she would kind of scream to get her way. And at the end, she would go, "I'm just sensitive," which I can respect, but sensitive is hyperreactivity when we're unaware of the depth of transmutation occurring within us. Empathy is different because for an empath, blaming and judging, it's not like it's something that's bad to do. It's just something that feels so awful. There's no way we can actually do it with either a straight face or with any level of commitment. When as an empath, and this is just how I live my life, I don't mind how anyone behaves. I mean, obviously, hypothetically, if I'm being mistreated, I remove myself, which doesn't happen that often. But as an empath, I don't mind how someone behaves because they're in a parallel dimension and we're just intersecting timelines. I'm concerned with how I respond to them. And my spiritual practice, which I love, is respect and politeness. And so for me, if I were to say something not nice to someone, which just how I am, doesn't even, like, the urge doesn't even arise. There's no like, oop, I chose not to. Like, it doesn't arise because that, even just as a thought or a possibility, feels so extraordinarily foreign and awful in my energy field. There's absolutely no way it can move out of my field and into someone else because I would be harming myself. Because the light I am lives in the bodies of all. So I don't need someone else to know my light as theirs, but I'm very aware that my light lives in the bodies of all. And I treat every single person as a member of my family, and they can treat me the way they want to, and it's all good. So I think sensitive versus empath, very big distinction. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I love that. And it felt really true and also novel.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I would love to take that a step further and hear you explain why blame in general is an ineffective technique, and then offer advice for if something is actually bothering you, where maybe you really do genuinely feel like somebody did something that may have crossed a boundary or something like that. How do you approach that with somebody in a healthy way?
Well, the first answer is, why do we blame? And I think we blame because we, as a trauma response, because blame is a deference of responsibility. And what happens is that we grow up experiencing, whether a friend, a family member, an authority figure, somewhere in our past, we will experience someone deferring their responsibility and projecting their experience onto us. And we as children will say that's unfair. And because we're not in a level of maturity to process it in consciousness, there's a tendency to replicate our mistreatment as a unconscious way of trying to let someone know we've been harmed. But instead of communicating it, we kind of play a game of hot potato. So we blame as a repercussion of feeling as if we've been blamed. We blame as a way of deferring responsibility. And especially if we have a hard time speaking our truth, or if we carry past life memories of being persecuted for speaking up, we blame as a way of finding a false degree of courage when leading with anger instead of authenticity. So what we learn to do, and this is something that I just downloaded from the universe recently, is that a lot of people will say, I have to be courageous in order to speak my truth. But the truth is that for most people, courage is not an accessible vibration. The question is, what is the vibration always accessible that cultivates or builds the equity so that your bank account can afford courage? And what builds equity in your emotional bank account is honor. And so for an empath, the journey is honor before courage, meaning you can be scared, you can be worried, you can be angry. But as an empath, what is the choice that puts us in the highest level of honor with our integrity, even in response to someone else? So let's say we're in a situation, to go into the other question, where someone is mistreating you or speaking to you in a derogatory fashion. I'll share with you one way I did it, because I've developed such a skill, and I developed it being the spiritual being, serving my audience, and then going to see my family for the holidays, checking my math, right? And, you know, we all have that thing. Okay, I'm going to go to my family. Okay. I set an intention, archangels, right? We pulled a card, all the things. And you walk in, hello, mother, hello, father, namaste. And 10 minutes later, you're back to being a 10-year-old. So I remember I was at a family party, and someone was, at my family parties, some people, like, they always have like an open bar and people drink. And I always go and make an appearance. And when things start to kind of get to a certain level, no judgment, it's just time for me to go. And so I was at a party hanging out, eating some hors d'oeuvres, and off of a paper plate and doing the family thing. And I was talking to someone who had been drinking and was not saying nice things. And I asked myself this question. And I said, how do I let them know they're not being very nice to me, so I can advocate for myself without saying, you're not being nice to me? The reason I ask this question is because what I know to be true intuitively is that people who receive negative feedback are reminded of when they got in trouble when they were younger. So most people will deny any allegation, even if they did it, because their inner child is trying to avoid the punishment that they've not processed from their childhood. So that creates a spin out, that creates a trauma reaction, and it's not going to bring people together. And I'm in this moment, and then of course my intuition comes on and just speaks through me. And they were saying, like, oh yeah, you think you're so spiritual and so cool with your work and whatever, they've been drinking, whatever, And I looked at them and I said, I want to thank you for sharing with me how you feel. And they said, well, that's not how I feel. And I said, oh, well, I would love to hear more about how you feel. And they stopped. And it was my way of advocating for myself, while aware of the fact that they're not at a level of consciousness to be self-reflective. Or I also tuned in and said, what is the likelihood that this person lives to avoid any degree of change? So if I'm going to have a conversation about, I need you to change right now because you're treating me like crap, what's the likelihood it's not going to go well? So I decided to say, thank you for sharing with me how you feel. I know it's not how they feel. And now they know it's not how they feel. And they said, it's not how I feel. And I said, oh, well, and then a question of interest. I would love to hear more about how you're feeling these days. And they kind of went and wandered off, because their consciousness had woken up in that moment and realized, I don't have the bandwidth to go here. And they went off to find their next target. And so I advocated for myself by responding to them from the highest possibility, allowing their consciousness realizing that's not what I'm trying to do. And then their consciousness goes, you need to go over here. So I learned to communicate in a very skillful way, because what I think is one of the most fundamental missteps of communication is that people think I need to let people know how they're treating me. And yes, in certain dramatic examples, absolutely. And we can talk about how we would do that. If you're co-parenting and someone is being manipulative, if someone is holding children over your head, or any version of something extraordinary, of course, we learn to have these kind of conversations. But I think we have to learn to have conversations about, how do I really meet someone soul to soul? How do I really connect with their heart? And how can I advocate for myself without giving my power away to someone else, as if it's their need to change that liberates me from confinement? How can I be in a place of sovereignty and speak from a place of compassion that advocates for my innocence, but doesn't need to lower the standard of my behavior as an echo of the standard they're acting from?
Thank you again.
That was well said.
Thank you.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, I can go.
No, I have a question, but I felt like that was almost poetic.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you what would you give as a format for presenting something when you do have to maybe speak up or tell somebody how you feel? There's the classic I statements, like, which, is supposed to be disarming. I wonder if you have some advice for the way to communicate, to be able to let somebody know something and not make the other person defensive.
Absolutely.
Do you have any ninja communication tricks?
Ninja. Well, I like I in terms of, I think fundamentally it's stronger to come from I than you. So if we say you are doing this to me, when we get into you and me language, what are the odds? That's not going to go over well. Because here's the thing. The people in the world that would hear that and could course correct and go, oh my God, I didn't know, I'm so sorry, are the people who you never have to have conversations with.
Yeah.
So I like to lead with, here's what I do. I like to start with gratitude. I like to then give constructive feedback that is framed about my needs and invite them to participate if they can, and then end with gratitude. I call it a gratitude sandwich. So I would say, I'm grateful that we're having this moment together. I am feeling entirely overwhelmed by this interaction. My nervous system can't handle this volume and intensity. If you're able to kind of slow things down, it would really support me in fully being here with you. And if you can, I'm so grateful. And if not, I'm honored if you would let me know. So I start with gratitude. I'm thankful for this moment. And of course, you have to say something that's authentic, but I say that because it's true. And then I give the feedback, but the feedback is not, I need, you are doing something bad. It's, here's what I'm going through. And if you're someone that wants to participate in the furthering of my healing journey, I'm asking if you can give me this gift. And if you can, fantastic. And if not, just let me know. And if not, I may have to kind of end this interaction and talk to you some other time. But thanks for listening. And thanks for letting me know what you can provide. And I think that's a very powerful combination. In perfect synchronicity, we started, with the thank yous and the heart coherence. And I think gratitude is a really beautiful opener. And I think that when we talk about getting into deeper, escalated, heated conversations, and obviously the wheels start to fall off the wagon and people start to get triggered, I think at that point, we just have to say to ourselves, I need to remove myself from the situation. And so we say to someone, I'm no longer able to be with you in a way that maintains the standards of my ethics and integrity. I'm going to remove myself and take care of my needs, and I will reconnect with you when I'm in a space to do so. And then you remove yourself. And so you can always be honorable, even when someone is hiding from their pain through dishonorable behavior. And I think that is something that has been forgotten. And I think that is something that the world, and especially the global empathic community, is starting to glimpse and really remember on a fundamental difference, is that through the law of polarity, in the presence of unconscionable behavior, we have an opportunity to either reflect it back, or we have an opportunity to be what's missing from the moment. That's the law of polarity. And as empaths, we learn to use the law of polarity skillfully. Whatever I want from, whatever I wish they were more of, I bring more to that moment. Whatever is bothering me, I make a request. I call that putting someone on notice. And if they continue, I say, hey, remember I said about that, my nervous system, I'm still feeling like I'm being electrocuted. So I'll tell you what, I got to go. Thank you so much for this time. And I will catch up with you some other time. And I've had people say this, oh, I don't want you to go right now. I really appreciate that, but I need to take care of my needs right now. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I remove myself. And so I think the difference is advocating for our own needs instead of waiting for someone's permission to make a choice. And again, we wait for people's permission because the children in our hearts are still integrating, and we tend to project the validation we want from others as if it's parents, because that's what we did with parents. So we treat people subconsciously like parents, and like we need people's permission to break up with them. We need people's permission to go, I am being electrocuted. I need to leave. I need you to let me go, right? If you had a child in your arms, you'd be like, look, we're at this party. My child won't stop crying. We got to go. Somehow it's okay when you're holding a child in your arms, but why is it different when the child's living in your heart? So we have to learn to advocate for ourselves, communicate our needs, create boundaries, and not ask permission, and to do it in a very skillful way that is of the highest honor when we communicate from a space of authenticity and gratitude. It's once it starts to click, it's so powerful, and it becomes incredibly easy.
Thank you. As this is the Heart Coherence Collaborative, I would love to hear just you talk a little bit about the heart's influence in our spiritual evolution.
Yes, oh my God, the heart's influence. My goodness. I mean, I think that to understand the heart's influence, we can sometimes look at spiritual paths that there sometimes can be a focus on a spiritual aspiration that is so in what seems to be high level that it almost disregards the necessity of the heart, right? Like there are some teachings that will talk about non-dual reality. And again, I live in a non-dual reality. I live in a reality where there is just one. And yet I'm in a play of many, and I'm living as an individual, but the individual I am is just a way for the uniqueness of spirit to move through, right? There's not a lot of density to like trap that light. So I understand the non-dual reality as my living experience in what's called samadhi consciousness. But I think on some paths, there can be an overemphasis on enlightenment or an overemphasis on oneness in such a way that it almost is like a spiritual costume that the unconscious masculine wears. And it makes it about like, well, this is the goal and how we get there, who cares? And it's almost militant. So the heart represents the divine feminine, right? We have the mind and the heart. And it's the heart's job to be like the gravitational force that attracts the mind into the remembrance that the mind and the heart are actually soulmates. And that really, from a heart-centered perspective, separation from source is really how far apart your mind and heart have wandered. And so our consciousness awakens to reunite mind and heart. Mind's job is to help us process and fathom the quantum infinite capacity of our spirit. Our heart's job is to help us feel and process our spirit on an emotional and creative level. And so when we have both functioning in a state of connection and interdependence, we are not just seeking and aspiring to be one with the highest truth, but the heart's job is to ensure that the truth of your consciousness is manifested through the most honorable way in whatever way you speak and behave. And so what I represent on the spiritual path, and people can say many things, I represent the necessity for awakened consciousness to be manifested through the heart to ensure that the conduct of awakening beings is of the highest level of honor and alignment, because it's our ability to come from a place of honorable conduct that starts to transmute the misconduct of the world and to help awaken heart-centered consciousness in those who hurt and harm others.
Well said, my brother.
Thank you, homie.
So how do you keep your heart open, and especially when you're triggered? You talk about that in your book.
Yeah.
Because it can be really hard when you're sort of stuck in what your brain is doing.
I think that a lot of times the misunderstanding is if I'm triggered, my heart isn't open. But if your heart isn't open, you wouldn't feel triggered. So that's an interesting little flip. So I think people think if my heart is open, I'm always going to be nice. And, there's a lot of, not that it's not true. It's just not the whole truth. So I think when we think of the questions, how do I keep my heart open? I like to kind of reframe that as, what do I need to feel safe? Because a closed heart can be a way for a spiritual being to blame themselves and to, oh, I failed today. I closed my heart, or I shut my heart. I failed that test. I was in the presence of people being extremely unreasonable, and I closed my heart, and, you know, like Chutes and Ladder or Candyland, I got to go back through the molasses or whatever. Or like Monopoly, I got to go straight to jail. I don't get my $200. But I think that really the question of heart openness is, the heart's nature is to remain open. It closes when we are not safe. So the gravity of your heart is always to be open. So imagine a garage door that's always open, that only closes when you take all of your power to pull down the garage door. So if we recognize that a closed heart means I'm shut down because I don't feel safe enough to be naturally open. If I need to use all my power to close a garage door, it's letting go of the door that causes the garage to open back up. And so it's through the process of letting go, which is not pushing things away, but it's kind of, how can I, in this moment of unsafety, recognize in myself that maybe the environment may provide some unsafety, but the true core of unsafety is my grip of needing control. And so if I can ask myself, what do I need? What do I need for self-care, for emotional nourishment? What do I need to say to myself? What can I do for myself to allow the grip of hiding behind a need for control to be loosened? The more I loosen the grip of control by serving my own needs and not projecting those needs onto other people, the more I feel safe. The more I feel safe, the door of my heart naturally bursts wide open. So I think it's really about loosening the grip of control by fulfilling our own needs and allowing ourselves to realize we only shut our hearts when we feel the most unsafe. And what makes us feel more unsafe than the lack of safety in the world is actually any degree of control we cling to.
I would love to just hear how we can support you. Like, what's new in your life, and how can our followers get in touch with you? How can they support you? What's going on with Matt Kahn?
Matt Kahn. Matt Kahn is going through an incredible transformation right now. I was telling you before, I'm on, day 4 of a 5-day fast, and I'm just wanting to use this time as a reset for myself and as a way of just loving and caring for my body even more than ever before. But as far as what I'm up to, I recently sat down with my team, and we were going to film an online course, and we had it outlined as to it was going to be about this. And I sat down in front of the camera, and something new came through. And section by section, I channeled a course called Heal to Completion, where each of the 7 levels of consciousness has 5 different aspects. And I sat down in front of the camera with no plan and did each one in one take, and channeled out of course, thin air, the most jaw-dropping, compelling, unexpectedly life-changing online course, which was shot in HD by the same team that did my documentary. And it's as if you're going on a personal retreat with me, and we're walking hand by hand, and I'm walking you through the clearings and activations of all 7 levels of consciousness. I share stories I've never shared before. I take healing to a depth that I've waited 15 years of my healing career that I didn't even know could go this deep. And so right now there's a waiting list, and we're opening this course up in January. And I would just invite every empathic being who's watching this, if you want to really integrate your healing journey, get on the other side of some deep traumas, if you want to learn to what I call reversing the empathic curse. And here's what that means. Instead of you empathing the conditioning of other people, you allow the world to empath the light that you shine. And if you want to use your empathic nature to feel more of your vibration and less of the heaviness of others, we reverse that gravitational pull. That's why this course was channeled through me and created. And so if people go to mattkahn.org, and if you go to the Heal to Completion, you can sign up to get on the waiting list. And when we open it in January, not only is it going to be an online course, but there's a workbook that comes with it. And there's also a community aspect that people will have a chance to ask questions that I will come on and answer. And so and there's also going to be like live calls where I answer questions. So it's, for me as a healer, I had asked myself about a year ago, as far as we come in the journey, what can I do to take it to the next level for all the people I want to serve in this world? And what came through me on this course was the answer. And I'm so humbled by what moved through me. And if I left this planet today, I know I will have left behind such an incredible gift that I wish for every human being to receive and experience.
How about one organization that our following could donate to or contribute to? Does anyone come to mind?
Oh yeah, my goodness. I mean, I love, I love contributing to local food banks. I think that every person lives in a different part of the country. So I think if you find a local food bank, typically local food banks, when you donate food or money, the money tends to go on the ground level to feeding people. Like you can call a food bank and say, how much does it cost to feed one family? And then multiply how many you want to feed. I remember a year ago, and we do it every holiday season, or a couple of years ago when we were doing in-person events, we donated from our event and fed about 10,000 families. So I'm a fan of working with local food banks. I also love working with an organization called No Kid Hungry. I'm a fan of Habitat for Humanity. And I love philanthropy. And moving forward in my career, there are some plans we're putting into place where there's going to be a more philanthropic aspect, because what I think is so important and what really excites me is I want to create a global movement of heart-centered consciousness where everything people do to empower and inspire themselves to be the best they can be is also creating change on a socioeconomical level. So people can feel good about all the deep dives they do to integrate their empathic nature, to become more heart-centered, to heal traumas, and to really evolve in consciousness. But imagine if all that you were doing in evolving your consciousness was also feeding family, clothing children, affording, people to go to school, clean drinking water, and all the resources that everyone in the world deserves to have. Imagine participating in a healing journey that is simultaneously creating tangible global change. This is my dream, and I'm in the very beginning stages of living it on a very high level. And when the time is right, I can't wait to share what we're working on.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. Last question. Why is the gift in the giving?
There is a very famous quote. I believe it's a Sufi quote, and it says the giver should be thankful. Because it is the giver that says to the recipient, thank you for allowing me to give and share with you as a reminder of my own power. And what I give to you, I am equally receiving. So thank you for allowing me to receive the gift by having the honor of sharing with you. So I believe that the gift is in the giving, because it's giving that reminds us of how helpful we can be. And when we're reminded of how helpful we can be, it amplifies our inner degree of hopefulness. And when we're reminded of our power, we're able to express that power in a way where we can uplift other people, and then notice that uplifting other people simultaneously uplifts us, which is why the giver should always be thankful. So it's a beautiful thing when we can be helpful to others, whether we're being helpful to others or someone is receiving our help. Either way, it creates and sparks a remembrance of unity consciousness, that we're all in this together, we're all one. And the more you help someone, the more you inspire them to be helpful to another. And the more another human being is inspired to be helpful is the very moment their hopelessness begins to dissolve.
Everybody go give. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, raise it up, raise it up. Oh man, another awesome interview. Thank you so much. We love you. Everybody here in the Heart Coherence Collaborative, thank you for being here.
Yes, and please come back again and again and again.
I would love to. I think you both are just extraordinary. And I just want to say to everyone who's been joining us today, thank you so much for shining your light. Thank you for being so empathic and heart-centered. And please, not just in the holiday season, but from this moment forward, let's not judge ourselves by how open our heart is. Let's not use our empathic nature against ourselves. Let us just take time to really love ourselves and nurture ourselves. For the more we help ourselves, the more hope we spread to others, and the more we help those that are hiding in pain to come out of hiding.
One more time. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Love it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
So much, Matt. We love everybody.
Take care.